The first thing I saw was my wife on the ground, hand-scraped shirt torn, and 3 men in neon vests standing over her like they'd just cornered a wild animal. And one of them, this twitchy little guy with cargo shorts and a name tag that read compliance officer, was still shouting, "You were warned, ma'am. This is your final notice." I didn't hear the rest because I was already out the door. I moved fast. Years of training kicked in without permission. Footsteps light, angle wide, don't charge, flank, assess before engage. They didn't see me until I was 10 feet away. The tall one spun first. He must have thought I was a neighbor. "This is HOA business, sir. We suggest you." That's as far as he got. I didn't hit him. Not yet. I grabbed his clipboard, snapped it in half over my knee, and dropped both pieces at his feet. "You assaulted my wife," I said, calm as the ocean before a storm. "You have 5 seconds to explain yourself before I decide how this ends." The one on the left, mid-30s, shaved head, trying way too hard to look tough, took a step forward. "She interfered with a citation process," he said. "She pushed me." My wife, still on the ground, coughed out a laugh. "I was taking the trash out. That's what started this." The trash. Apparently, the HOA had passed some unofficial policy banning non-concealed trash transport. Translation: she carried a garbage bag without using the approved bin with the logo on it. That's it. That was the reason these 3 fake cops jumped her in our front yard like they were doing a drug bust. I looked at her, looked at them, and breathed in slow. I've done 2 tours in Afghanistan. One in Iraq and a classified stint in a place I still don't talk about. But the one thing that always sets me off: cowards with power. You want to enforce rules? Fine. You lay a hand on my wife? Then you'd better be ready to meet God with a sprained ankle and a lawsuit. Leave, now, I said. Cargo Shorts tried to stand his ground. This is documented HOA action. I stepped forward, nose to nose. You're not law enforcement. You're not even legally authorized to enforce physical compliance. You just committed assault on camera. I pointed to the blinking red light under our porch camera. Leave while you still have your teeth. They backed off. The tall one muttered something about calling this in, and walked off pretending to talk into his walkie like a kid at recess. They piled into a golf cart. Yes, an actual HOA-labeled golf cart, and rolled down the street like deflated vigilantes. I helped my wife up. She brushed herself off like it was just another Tuesday. "You okay?" I asked. She winced, looking at her elbow. "Bruised, not broken, but you might want to sit down before you check your email." I raised an eyebrow. Turns out, while I was at the hardware store that morning, she'd received an escalation notice via email, accusing her of hostile behavior, threatening HOA agents, and citing her for 5 new violations, one of which was inappropriate response to enforcement personnel. I swear, they were inventing these things with a dartboard and a thesaurus. "You know what this means, right?" I asked her. She nodded. "It's going to get worse, not for us." I stood there on the porch, looking down our street, the perfect little row of houses, identical mailboxes, everyone pretending everything's fine, but it wasn't. This HOA wasn't about community. It was about control, and now they'd made it personal. They thought they could bully a woman over a trash bag. They had no idea who they'd just picked a fight with. The next day, I suited up, not with weapons, but with intel, documentation, and 15 years of tactical experience. They wanted a war over trash? Fine. I'd give them one they'd never forget. By 9 a.m. the next morning, I'd printed out every rule, policy, and enforcement addendum the HOA had ever circulated. Most of them weren't real. No signatures, no vote records, no time-stamped approvals, just PDFs with big fonts and clip art, posted in HOA emails like they were gospel. Page 12 of their security enforcement policy claimed HOA officers had authority to neutralize resistance from hostile residents. Neutralize resistance over trash bags. I could feel the scar on my left shoulder tighten. That word didn't belong in a suburb. That was a battlefield term, and the people using it wore name tags from Office Depot. My wife was inside on the couch with an ice pack, scrolling through Facebook posts from neighbors who'd seen the whole thing. A few offered to help. Most stayed silent. Fear is sticky, and that's what the HOA was built on. But they didn't know me. I wasn't raised to fear a clipboard. I started with the clubhouse. Security cameras mounted in all directions, supposedly there to protect residents. What they were actually doing was watching, constantly. I'd seen the blinking red lights, the zooms, the way they slowly tilted when someone walked by. I drove to the community office, asked for video footage from the previous day under our HOA's transparency clause. The woman at the desk blinked like I'd spoken Russian. "We don't give footage to residents," she said. "You do now," I replied, and slid a folded letter across the counter, written by my attorney and citing the exact bylaws she had probably never read. She handed over the USB like it was radioactive. I walked out, drove straight home, plugged it in, and there it was. 3 men, Rick, Carl and the new one, Kenny, surrounding my wife as she stepped outside with the trash. You could clearly see the timestamps. She wasn't resisting. She wasn't yelling. She was trying to walk past. Rick blocked her path with his arm. Carl grabbed the trash bag and flung it across the yard. Kenny shoved her, hard enough to knock her off balance, and into the stone edging by the flower bed. That wasn't enforcement. That was assault. And now I had it on video. I forwarded the footage to the local police, copied the HOA board, and added one simple subject line: immediate legal action pending. That was before lunch. By dinner time, the HOA sent an emergency email titled "Clarifying Recent Incidents." It was 2 pages of weak excuses and half-truths. Claimed the footage was edited, that my wife posed a potential threat, and that the HOA officers were acting within community safety protocols. Community safety. You know what wasn't safe? Letting bored men with walkie-talkies pretend they were soldiers. At 7:45 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Carl, the one who flung the trash, with a manila envelope in one hand and a GoPro strapped to his chest. "This is a formal violation notice," he said, voice shaking. I stared at the GoPro. "Is that recording? For documentation." "You want documentation?" I said, stepping out onto the porch. "Let me give you some." I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the footage, played it back in full view. He watched himself shove my wife on a 5-inch screen from 3 feet away. His face drained. "I didn't know it was that bad. You had 30 seconds to change your mind." I cut in. "You made your choice." Then I leaned in, lowered my voice. "You think this is about a trash bag? I've operated in countries where we cleared hostels from buildings brick by brick. You're not special, Carl. You're a grown man, with a badge from Staples and a power complex, and you just stepped into the wrong backyard." He left without saying another word. The next morning, someone egged my truck. I found a note under the windshield wiper. "You think you're above the rules? Wait till the board hears about your threats." They were trying to intimidate me, which meant the board was nervous. Good. They should be, because what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly imagine, is that I'd already started phase 2. I wasn't going to the HOA board meeting next week. I was going to take it over. By the time I stepped through the doors of the clubhouse, they were already sweating. The crowd had doubled since the announcement went out. Neighbors, lawn chairs, folded arms. Some came with popcorn. Others brought copies of the video. The one where Rick's bootleg security squad shoved my wife to the ground over a trash bag. I walked up the center aisle without a word. Rick was posted near the projector, puffed up like a budget bodyguard. His clipboard was gone, replaced with a binder full of lies. Carol sat at the front of the room with her fake pearl necklace, an HOA gavel like she was running Congress. She adjusted her mic, looked around like this was just another bake sale. It wasn't. "This meeting will now come to order," she said. Too late. I held up the flash drive. "No need. I've already brought order." All eyes shifted. On this drive is the full security footage from 3 days ago. "You know the one where Rick, Kenny and Carl shoved my wife down because she carried a trash bag without a sticker." Gasps. Someone whispered. "That was her." Another. "They attacked her over trash." I plugged it in. Let the screen speak. There it was. My wife calm, walking outside. 3 men step in. Words are exchanged. Then the push, the stumble, her hitting the ground. Silence in the room, thick enough to choke on. Then a single voice from the back. "That's assault." Carol cleared her throat. We have not verified the authenticity of, it's from your cameras." I snapped. "Don't insult us." She flinched, So did Rick. I walked to the table, dropped a folder in front of her. Inside is a signed statement from the responding officer, a report from the county investigator, a copy of our HOA's actual recorded rules, and a list of citations issued under fake policies. Her fingers hovered. Didn't touch it. I didn't stop. You approved $42,000 in security developments last year. You said it went to community protection. Funny thing, turns out that money went to a shell company owned by Rick's brother. No security experience, no licensing, just a P.O. box and a PayPal account. Rick looked like someone had unplugged him. The room shifted. Tension turned into fire. Brian, former Air Force, 2 houses down, stood up. I moved to dissolve the current HOA board pending investigation. Clara, retired teacher, seconded it. Carol tried to bang the gavel. Too late. All in favor? Hands. Everywhere. People who never spoke raised their voices. Even the guy with the "Don't tread on my grasses" sign. Carol stood. Rick hovered like a ghost behind her. This is irregular, she barked. You can't just remove the board like this. I stepped forward. You started this over a trash bag. You escalated it into assault. You used fear, fines, and fake rules to control this neighborhood. I paused. Held her stare. You're lucky all we're doing is voting. Then I turned and walked out. The crowd parted like a tide. Behind me voices rose. Cheers. Shouts. The sound of fear breaking into freedom. Outside it was already starting. Neighbors pulled down the HOA violation notices from their mailboxes. One guy tossed his laminated mailbox compliance guide into the recycling bin like it was radioactive. Rick's golf cart was still parked by the flagpole. Somebody slashed the tires. I didn't ask who. Didn't need to. The certified letter showed up 3 days after the vote. No return address, but I didn't need one. The envelope smelled like desperation. Inside was a single sheet of thick white paper. Legal language. Official tone. Full of phrases like pending litigation, potential countersuit, and my personal favorite, abuse of military status to intimidate civilian leadership. It was signed by Carol Snyder. She hadn't resigned. Not officially. Instead, she was doubling down, claiming she'd been targeted. Said her security officers were under emotional distress. Said my wife's calm composure was psychologically weaponized. I read it twice and laughed so hard I nearly dropped it in the sink. I showed my wife. She skimmed it, flipped it over, and wrote one line in pen across the back. You were warned. I sent that back to her. No envelope, just taped it to the HOA office door with a picture of the shredded bylaws from the last meeting. And that was it. That was the moment Carol realized she'd lost control. Not just of the neighborhood, of the narrative. The investigation moved fast, faster than anyone expected. Probably because I wasn't the only one with stories. Turns out Clara from book club, her granddaughter had been fined for bicycle noise violations. 3 times. Brian, the Air Force guy, fined for prolonged eye contact with an enforcement officer. Rick's crew had been stacking fines like playing cards. Thousands of dollars in nonsense violations, all unapproved by the county, and none traceable through any legal channel. It was a full-blown HOA racket. The local paper ran a front-page story. Suburb or sovereign nation. Inside the HOA that went rogue, there were pictures, quotes, screenshots of the video. My wife's name was redacted, but everyone knew. She became a quiet legend. People started jogging again, walking dogs without fear. Someone even set up a lemonade stand in front of the clubhouse. First kid who got fined for it was the first kid to testify. We all showed up for the hearing. Carol arrived with 2 attorneys and 0 shame. Rick didn't show at all. Rumor was he skipped town after selling his truck and draining the HOA emergency fund. Good riddance. The judge didn't even need an hour. The decision was clear. All fines issued under non-sanctioned bylaws were void. The HOA's authority was suspended pending reformation. Carol Snyder was banned from serving in any leadership capacity within a registered residential association for 10 years, and the HOA had to issue a public apology. They printed it in size 12 times New Roman, and posted it on the bulletin board like it would disappear. I had it blown up and turned into a banner, hung it on my garage like a victory flag. Neighbors laughed every time they passed. But there was one thing left. The enforcers, Kenny and Carl, silent ever since. No apology, no explanation. Just gone. No eye contact in public. No acknowledgement at all. Then one evening around dusk, Carl showed up on my porch. No clipboard. No camera. Just a man holding his hat in both hands like it might save him. He asked to speak. I let him. Said he didn't know how bad it looked. That he was following orders. That he thought it was just another violation. Another check mark. I nodded. You pushed my wife, I said. He lowered his head. She didn't fall. I continued. She chose to go down easy. He looked up, confused. If she'd reacted, I said. If she'd let her training take over, you wouldn't have walked away. Silence stretched between us. He whispered, I'm sorry. I believed him. Not because of his words, but because of the look in his eyes. He wasn't scared of me. He was ashamed of himself. I didn't say anything else. Just nodded once. Then closed the door. That was enough. Not everything ends with fireworks. Sometimes it ends with quiet. The neighborhood's different now. No more patrols. No more fines for wind chimes or grass that's half an inch too bold. The new board. Yes, there's a new one. Meets in broad daylight. Anyone can join. Everyone gets a say. My wife jogs again. Peacefully. Freely. No GoPros. No golf carts creeping up the street. Last month someone installed a bench near the entrance to the trail loop. On the back there's a plaque. In honor of those who stood their ground. She never said a word about it. But I saw the look on her face when she ran past it the first time. Calm. Still. Focused. The way warriors look after the fight is done. And peace. That's the mission now.